All right, I'm going to address some of the questions that came in. I'm going to give you, again, based on my experience, my knowledge. As always, consult your physician. This is not something you want to just step out long-term fasting without definitely doing some research on it. So let me just go through the questions that came in order. Again, we're going to recommend my books are free downloads at the church website. My books on fasting, go to westsidechristianfellowship.org, and it talks about what can I drink, what should I do, can I exercise, what type of diet is best. It answers a lot of those questions for you already that I might not have time for. What were the three biggest challenges? The three biggest challenges to date, 3 weeks in, no brainer here, persevering, continuing, wanting not to eat, wanting not to cave in, and the power of the made-up mind. When you make a decision like, okay, Lord, you're calling me to do this, is vitally important, and you stay focused on that goal. Here's the why. If you keep looking at the why, it's hard to get sidetracked. Okay, I'm hungry. Okay, but here's the why. I'm feeling moody and some chocolate would be really good, but here's the why. Persevering was hard, and continuing, but the power of the made-up mind was really key in that. And then the second thing was perception. Believe it or not, a lot of us are influenced by the opinions of others. And anytime I fasted in the past, people say, why are you fasting? That doesn't make sense. Why would you starve yourself? Realizing you don't starve yourself. We all have plenty of storage to burn for quite a while. We don't go into starvation mode until you've used all of your fat as fuel. And so that's a long ways away for many. Technically, I could probably go at least 40, 50 days before I even get close to breaking down muscle and other key organs in the body. It has nothing to do with starving. And also people say, you look too skinny. I know when I get down to my high school weight, probably in the next week or so, people start commenting, oh, you don't look good, you look too. And so that kind of plays a role, especially if you're a man and you're used to be big and strong, 6'2", 230 pounds, and lifting weights. And, so it's just how people are going to comment. Maybe some family members don't quite understand what I'm doing, or they think it's weird. They don't understand how biblical it is. That's challenging. The final thing, the three biggest challenges, pain. How I felt. There were some times where I did not feel good. I just laid in bed for a few hours. But again, focusing on the why, my back's hurting. A lot of that could be the kidneys, getting rid of the detoxifying, or just the body repairing itself, plus getting off of caffeine, getting off of coffee, even though I had like 4 ounces a day. Getting off of that, you're going to start, because caffeine makes your muscle very tense, and it begins to loosen up, and so you'll experience some back pain, shoulder pain. If you can get through the first 3 or 4 days, it's not all downhill from there, but it's much easier. And then your biggest challenge is going to be in refeeding. That's where you have to be very careful. But again, I talk about all this in the books. I don't want to belabor that point, but if you go more than 5, 6, 7 days, you got to be very careful of how you introduce food, because you can overload. And so you can actually overload your body, and people end up in the hospital after a 30-day fast, and they just pig out. You've got to introduce food every couple hours. Here's a half of an orange. A couple hours later, a little bit of orange juice. You got to refeed the proper way. And so you'd have to do a little research on that, but not everyone watching is going to go into a long fast and different things. So what fast is best? Well, I often throw it back on the person. What fast is best for you? So what I'm doing now would not be ideal for everyone. I've been building up to it. If you just go water only, a lot of deep healing takes place. Not everyone can do that. And so I know the Buchenheimer clinic in Germany recommends 250 calories a day. And you can say a little bit active. It's just enough to where you don't quite get that sickness. It's just enough to get you through. But then you have True North Center, a fasting center up in Santa Rosa here in California, where it's just water only. But I can't go lay in a bed at a fasting clinic for weeks. I've got family, I've got kids in the church. And so you have to find what works for you. What works for me is water only, and then just the minimal. I squeezed a whole grapefruit today, a whopping 50 calories. And so I'll probably drink that throughout the day with water. And that helps me get through the day. Maybe some green tea or something later, maybe some herbal tea. And God isn't looking at perfection. He's looking at direction. And so, for example, somebody doesn't follow a fast perfectly, but at the end of 30 days, they wind up 25 pounds lighter, their health is better, and they're spiritually connected to God more than they were. I would call that a huge success. But you have to watch out for the armchair quarterbacks in the fasting arena. Judgmental Jerry's, the critical Cathys, oh, you had a piece of gum, you broke your fast. You can't have xylitol, you can't have herbal tea. And technically they're right, because what they do at some fasting clinics, it's just water only, nothing, because what happens is even bringing in 10 calories from bone broth or something, your body is cleaning. Autophagy takes place. Autophagy, it's a Latin word, I believe, where it's eating self. And so autophagy, your cells are cleaning out the debris and the old tissue, and that's where cancer sometimes is consumed during autophagy. And so when you start to introduce calories, or you introduce maybe a big orange juice, that whole process stops, and now it uses your glucose as energy. And so you're stopping autophagy and you're not getting the deep benefits. So anybody that's fasting for health-related reasons, I would say, get somewhere and just do water only. Again, medical supervision, know what you're doing. But that's why it will stop that deep work of autophagy. Apoptosis, that is where your cell actually commits suicide. Apoptosis, the cell commits suicide. Autophagy is where the cell is cleaned. Both of those things happen, and it's very good during the fasting period. And normally you have to just have nothing. And that's why your body under that stress begins to consume its waste. And that's why it's very healthy physically, and it's very healthy spiritually as well. And then there's brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It's a protein in the gene where it actually will begin to clean the buildup of debris on the vessels in your brain that lead to Alzheimer's and to dementia. And they're finding that people with Alzheimer's, dementia, their brain is clouded. It's got a lot of waste on it. And so what autophagy does, and fasting, it allows your body to get rid of all these things because it has to have fuel. Where does it get the fuel from? You're so wonderfully and masterfully made by your Creator. I believe in creation, that God allowed the body to consume the waste when we're fasting. And it doesn't consume as much muscle as people think because the body goes into protein sparing mode. Growth hormone is elevated. IGF-1, insulin-like growth hormone factor, is raised. All these things that are raised to protect your muscle, because the body is so smart, it doesn't go for your muscle as fuel, it goes to fat, which is the primary fuel source. So you see tons of benefits in fasting, and I believe that's why it's so hard. Fasting really is not hard. What's hard is most of us are withdrawing from our favorite addictive substances. So, okay, I'm gonna fast like Pastor Shane says, and tomorrow just nothing. Okay, what's gonna happen when your coffee calls your name? There goes that caffeine headache, there goes those caffeine withdrawals. Oh, I can't handle this. So you have a little bit more of the caffeine to take that withdrawal away. Oh, I have to have sugar. You have some more sugar, processed foods, the salt, the oil, the refined oils and hydrogenated oils. And do you know food companies have scientists that work for them? I don't know if you knew that, but they measure the taste and just the right amount of quality of taste to get those endorphins moving and the serotonin, and we're addicted to these things. And so what you're doing is you're withdrawing. It's like no different than an addict withdrawing from heroin or alcohol or anything else, nicotine. And so if you can get the body clean and then go into fasting, it's definitely not as difficult whatsoever. It's your body was designed for that. So questions came in, can I drink this? Can I drink that? Again, it depends on what you're doing. If you're water fasting, no, you don't drink anything. Decaf coffee, not really, because there's nutrients there. You get potassium that might throw your potassium, magnesium levels out, and it's just water only. But if you have a decaf coffee, organic, that's up to you. Maybe herbal tea, no calories. Again, if you have some juice, it's gonna knock you off of autophagy. It's also gonna knock you out of ketosis. Ketosis is, you're hearing that word a lot, the ketogenic diet. Ketosis is when you stop burning glucose, because your body is run out of storage. It's not in my liver anymore, it's not in my muscle anymore. I have to have food from somewhere, so it starts to burn your fat as fuel. And as a result, ketone bodies are released, and that's why it's called ketones. And even that switch makes you feel a little bit sick, but once you get through that, the body runs efficiently. The brain loves ketone bodies, and it works really well. You don't want to really work out a lot on this when you're fasting, because something called gluconeogenesis can happen, where your body will break down the muscle and turn it into glycogen. Gluconeogenesis, creating glucose out of nothing. Like Genesis, a beginning, a start. And so the body will start pulling from muscle because it can't get enough ketone bodies as quickly. So you want to avoid that as well. I try not to work out too much, but if you're at 250, 300 calories like the clinic I mentioned in Germany, that's why you can work out a little bit. They go on walks and they stay a little bit active. So you have to find what works for you. I mean, if you're watching, you're a mom, you've got kids, I would start by just a very clean diet. I would start with intermittent fasting, where you don't eat maybe until later in the day. And even that's a smaller meal, and it's maybe a small meal before you go to bed. And you just kind of work into this fasting mode one step at a time, and not just go, cold turkey. It took me a long time to build up for something like this. How long do I fast? Well, again, it goes back to, what are your goals? Are you doing it for spiritual reasons? And that's why this documentary is both spiritual benefits. This kind does not go out except by prayer and fasting, and the spiritual benefits of fasting are first and foremost. but then the physical benefits are incredible as well. So if you're going for spiritual reasons, the last one I did was 9 days, a couple years ago. I was driving home from church and just felt a total release. Like, I can eat dinner tonight. I feel released, and I feel God released me from that, and it felt great. Or maybe you set up a time, okay, Lord, I'm gonna fast for the next 10 days. And you do it, you keep that commitment. If you fall, you get back up and fall forward. And many times at night in the past, I would go grab some cashews, eat them and go to bed. And I wake up, oh Lord, I'm sorry. So I'm not giving you permission to do that. I'm just telling you, that's what happens. Put some honey in some water, you feel a lot better. Okay, now back on track. And so it's a fasting journey, not perfect unless you can sit in a clinic all day, or unless you have no kids at home and you have no responsibilities and you can do it. I would recommend that because of the health benefits, but for most people, it's not that feasible. Now, with that said, if you're doing it for physical reasons, like weight loss, let's say in my case, hypothetically, weigh 230 pounds and my ideal weight is 185, 190, let's say, ideal weight. So I'm gonna wanna get down to about 170, because as soon as I eat, I'm gonna gain back about 10 pounds, 12 pounds very easily. Your body begins to store those glycogen again. You've got now fiber in your gut. You got the microbiome is active again in your gut. And so I'm gonna gain some of that back. And so that means I've gotta come down because I'm gonna go up a little bit. And also, if I'm fasting for physical reasons, my eyesight, type 2 diabetes, let's say, in a lot of people, cancer, tumors, you're gonna wanna go until the body tells you to stop. And that's why we recommend doctor supervision or really do some research, because if you stop too soon, the healing properties haven't taken place yet. And how you know is how God created us is hunger. It's really not, hunger's not in your stomach. Hunger will be in your throat and in your mouth. For example, I'm not hungry for the past couple of weeks. So once hunger returns, it's like there's a definite desire to eat. Okay, now I've got to eat. My body tells me hunger has returned. The tongue won't be coated anymore. The bad breath will leave. The cotton mouth will leave, and you begin fresh breath. The body's cleaned itself and hunger returns, and that's how you know. So most experts wait to let the body tell you when you're done, but not everyone can fast, for that length of time. So it's good to break it up in sections and take it to the Lord. That's what I would recommend. Take it to God, see how long He wants you to fast. Can I work out? How active should I be? I think I answered that earlier. I'd be if you're fasting, it's kind of counterproductive unless, going on a walk and different things is beneficial. Somebody asked about dry fasting. I wouldn't recommend that really. It's promoted a lot. It's a new craze. What it is, it's nothing at all, not even water. And I actually did it last night from 5 to 5, 12 hours of nothing. The thought behind it is your body needs water. So what's it do? It breaks down your fat cells even quicker. Boom, 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 like 3 times quicker than if you're drinking water. And so not only that, it also speeds up autophagy 3 times. So you've got more fat cells being broken down, you've got quicker results, but you don't want to go too long without water. So I don't recommend anything over, a day or so. For most people on that note, again, if you're thirsty, drink a little bit. I try not to drink too much water either, because remember, your body's getting water from the fat cells that are being broken down. And if you flood in too much water, then you're also going to push the electrolytes out too quickly. Because remember, electrolytes and your vitamins, your minerals, they are stored in your body. So as your fat cells are being broken down, it's also releasing potassium, magnesium, the stored vitamins and minerals that are actually stored in the fat cells. God designed us that way to be released. And so you don't really have to take a supplement unless the doctor recommends it. I normally don't. And people asked about medication. That's kind of a no-brainer. Talk to your physician. You have to be very careful. I don't recommend water fasting when a person's on medication, because let's say you're taking blood pressure medication, high blood pressure medication. Maybe it's an ACE inhibitor where it actually enlarges the blood vessels. Fasting lowers your blood pressure. So you're gonna have a big problem on your hands if you got this medication lowering it and fasting lowered it. Fasting lowered mine from like 155 and 95 to like 120 over 78 just within 3 weeks. If you're taking medication, you could be really in a problem there, especially if you're taking medication like metformin or something for diabetes and your liver's not producing this, and now you're fasting, needs the liver to produce it. Also statin drugs, what statin drugs tell the liver to do, and you're fasting. So you can see they're counterproductive, they can be dangerous. So with medication, I would encourage people to do the research, talk to the physician. And with your physician, you really have to say, this is what I'm going to do. Because if you ask them, what do you think about fasting? Oh, no, don't do that. You'll die through fasting. 40 years ago, a doctor recommending fasting like they do at these health clinics could be charged with malpractice, because we're gonna kill people. Now they realize, okay, this is a very important part of how the body works, and they're learning even more and more as we go. So if you do have questions, you can email them to us, but also the books, Feasting and Fasting, one of my books, or 40 Days to Reset Your Life at Westside Christian Fellowship. Both of those are free downloads, and you can get additional questions about what type of diet is best. And I recommend a whole plant-based food diet, healthy, God-given food, not boxed, not processed. You know, if you have a little clean meat now and then, that's not a hill to die on, even though a lot of people like to argue on that. So take it to the Lord. Once you start to remove processed foods and junk foods and sugar and just eat God-given food, you're gonna see a huge difference just in that alone. I'm just, as a living witness, telling you, I feel so much better physically and spiritually because it's all interwoven. When I just give up to the lust of the flesh, King Stomach is on the throne, because I will gravitate towards eating too much every day, without a shadow of a doubt. Everything sounds good when I'm a little bit hungry. And you start just eating too much. And putting that in check can really make a big difference. Okay, we heard about the physical side of the fast. What about the spiritual side of the fast? Just a good reminder that we can't bend God's arm, but we can bend our knee in fasting. He doesn't love us more, but I sure love him more. There's a spiritual component to this, and people say, well, will God be pleased if I fast? And he's not pleased if I don't. The question should be, Lord, do you want me to fast? How often should I fast? And it's not a work where I got to add this work. It's actually a spiritual discipline, because the Bible's clear that we are to crucify the flesh, to make no provision for the flesh, to not let the flesh dominate, to not fulfill the appetites of the flesh. John Wesley used to have his ministers fast on Wednesdays and Fridays for that very reason, because it adds self-discipline into our lives. So I wouldn't worry about what kind of fast does God want me to do? What do I have to do? Take it to him, see what he puts on your heart, and then follow through on that. But it's about telling the flesh, no, you've been governing me and leading me for a long time, and I'm telling you no for a season. And then you get built back up spiritually, and the flesh learns its place. And so spiritually speaking, I think that's wise. Matthew 6, where it says, when you fast, should we tell people about our fast? And most cases, no, because if it's a private fast, you and God, but you got to let your family know, your spouse know. I mean, key people need to know. I mean, Moses told us, Elisha told us, Jesus we knew, Ezra. I mean, people talked about their fast, but their hearts were right. So what we're doing in this case is calling a corporate fast. So if a pastor or a church leader calls a corporate fast to their church, it's okay because it has to be a public announcement. And then also another question, will fasting increase demonic activity? It could, because the enemy doesn't want you to fast. They understand that the power of prayer and fasting, and Jesus talked about in the Gospels, this kind does not come out except by prayer and fasting. The bottom line is, it's a principle that is very powerful. There are certain things where you have to pull out the sledgehammer and not just the baby hammer. This situation, this problem, this miracle is not going to happen without prayer and fasting. Why this is so important is prayer aligns my heart with God's heart. And then as I'm fasting, it starves the appetites of the flesh, and I can draw closer to God. And actually it leads to the filling of the Holy Spirit. So that's the key. You don't want to make it legalistic, but also you want to be open to what God is doing to maybe your heart in this area. So anyway, be encouraged. I hope that helps.